Napoleon Bonaparte. The most famous Frenchman in history was born at Ajaccio, Corsica, on 15th of August 1769. Consequently, Napoleon Bonaparte was not, in fact, French. He was, though, a French subject as a result of the ceding of Corsica to France by the Genoese in 1768. His family was upper middle class. His father, Carlo, was a political opportunist who gained acceptance into the French aristocracy. At the age of 10, Napoleon entered the military academy at Brienne, France. His first few months there were a nightmare, with the other children teasing him for his strange name, his foreign accent, and his small size. Napoleon coped by concentrating on his studies. In 1784, he won a place at the prestigious École Militaire in Paris. A year later, he graduated and was commissioned a second lieutenant of the artillery. He was garrisoned at Valencia. He spent the next 6 years as a struggling soldier in an isolated outpost. Napoleon's regiment was stationed in Auxonne when the French Revolution broke out. Napoleon approved of the revolution in principle, but he deplored the violence of the common people. On the 10th of August 1792, he witnessed the second storming of the Tuileries and the arrest of King Louis XVI. He also saw the slaughter of the Swiss guards that followed. From this point on, Napoleon both hated and feared the common people of France. Between 1790 and 1791, Napoleon spent 18 months in his homeland of Corsica, helping to consolidate French rule. In 1793, he rejoined his regiment, who was stationed in Italy. He was here given his first military command at the siege of Toulon. In 3 days, Napoleon bombarded the city into submission, gaining control of this important harbour city. He was rewarded by a speedy promotion to brigadier general and an appointment as commander of planning for the army of Italy. In 1795, he was recalled to Paris to help quell mobs under royalist leadership that were preparing to storm the Tuileries. Napoleon was placed as second in command of the defence. He ordered the storming crowds to be annihilated with 40 cannon. This act established Napoleon as a hero of the Revolution and gained him entrance into Parisian society. Through such connections, he met Josephine de Beauharnais. On March 9th, 1796, the two were married. His bride's connections were evident 2 days later when Napoleon became commander of the army of Italy. In quick succession, Napoleon achieved victories over the Italians, Austrians, and Sardinians at Maginot, Dago, Millesimo, Mondovi, and Lodi, Milan, Castiglione, and Arcola. In February 1797, he marched across the Alps toward Vienna. The Austrians sued for an armistice before a single shot was fired. His return to France was triumphant. At just 28 years of age, Napoleon had established himself as the greatest French general of all time. In honour of his achievements, he was elected to the prestigious Institute. He set his sights on achieving total power. First, though, there was the ongoing sea war with Britain. He decided on a rearguard action to attack Britain's resources by occupying Egypt and cutting off her trade routes with India and the Far East. On June 10, 1798, his forces took the island fortress of Malta. 3 weeks later, they laid siege to Alexandria. Within days, the entire Nile Delta was in French hands. Napoleon's first defeat, however, came on August 1st, when his entire naval fleet was destroyed by the British Navy. In February 1799, the French were again defeated, this time on land at the Battle of Acre. Napoleon retreated to Egypt. Here he handed his command over to General Jean-Baptiste Kléber and sailed for France. When he first arrived back in Paris, Napoleon was dismayed to find that France had lost control of most of the territories he had won in Italy. The Directory was, in fact, in a state of chaos. The young general was seen as the last hope for the country. Two of the directors approached him with a plan to overthrow the Directory. A coup d'état was executed on the 10th of November 1799. The directors were forced to resign and the Directory was abolished. A new government was established consisting of 3 consuls. Napoleon Bonaparte was meant to be one of the 3 equal members of this council, but it didn't take long for him to assert himself as the de facto dictator of France. Napoleon set about reforming local and national government, education, and legislature, proving himself a brilliant statesman and administrator. In 1802, Napoleon was voted consul for life. This, however, was not enough for him, and he set about paving the way for himself to be crowned Emperor of the French. In May 1804, he got his wish. In 1803, the British declared war on France once more. In December of that year, the Grand Army assembled in preparation of an invasion of Britain. The destruction of his fleet, combined with the Spanish by the British off Cape Trafalgar, however, ended any plans of a British invasion. In August 1805, Napoleon invaded Germany. French victories followed at Ulm and Austerlitz. Napoleon was crowned King of Italy. His relations were made kings of Naples and Holland. In 1806, Prussia declared war on France and was soundly defeated. Napoleon now introduced the continental system, which forbade all European nations trading with his age-old enemy Britain. In June 1807, he gained victory over the Russians at the Battle of Friedland. A year later, Charles IV ceded his rights in Spain to Napoleon. Napoleon's brother, Joseph, took the throne of Spain. The beginning of the end came in December 1810, when the Russians announced that they would no longer observe the continental system. Napoleon's response was to invade Russia. Making it to Moscow, the French forces were decimated by a massive fire. The Russian winter then took its toll on the French. More than 500,000 men had been reduced to less than 10,000. Napoleon retreated to Paris. England now believed that France could be beaten. In 1813, the Prussians joined forces with Russia in an alliance against France. When Austria joined the alliance, Napoleon, knowing he couldn't prevail, sued for an armistice. He soon reneged on the conditions, however, and an Allied invasion of France was put in motion. By January 1814, France was under attack from all sides. In March 1814, Paris fell to the Allies. Napoleon had moved his army east. The Parisian authorities had, however, abandoned him, and they came to terms with the Allies. Napoleon was determined to hold out to the bitter end, but after his general defected, he finally faced the inevitable. On 6th of April 1814, Napoleon Bonaparte announced his abdication. Under the Treaty of Fontainebleau, he was exiled to the island of Elba. Just a year later, however, he returned to Paris and, with the masses rallying around him, was reinstated as head of state. The Allies, of course, retaliated by marching once more on France. Initially, Napoleon's forces gained victory, but the final defeat came when the British forces, reinforced by the Prussians, met the French at Waterloo. Napoleon had fought his last battle. For a second time, the Emperor abdicated. Deciding what to do with him, the Allies finally decided on exile to the rocky island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic. Situated 1,000 miles off the African coast, Napoleon was now well and truly out of the way. On 5th of May 1821, Napoleon Bonaparte died on his island prison. He was just 51 years of age.